Get started. Hopefully everyone was able to log in easily. This is episode 2 of Saved You a Seat. The title today is Living and Working Remotely, which is new to just about all of us, but of course, it's something we're trying to work through as an industry and pretty much as a nation. I have 2 special guests with me today, which I'm very excited about. First, if you're looking at the same view as me, and I promise you I don't know how it's actually showing up on your screen, but if you're looking at the same view as me, the first person you see on the left there is Amy Neeson. Amy Neeson is with Land Title of Alabama. She is a SoftPro customer, and we thought we would like to get a perspective of what it's like working in this industry outside of SoftPro with everything being remote and employees not in the office. So welcome, Amy, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Leslie.
And then in the middle, I don't think she needs much introduction, but she does have a fancy new haircut. So we have Melissa McBurkowitz with SoftPro. Most of you know she runs R&D and select product and whatnot. So welcome, Melissa. She's going to give us a insight on what it's like to manage a team remotely. This is actually pretty new to her as well. And I, of course, should be at the end there. I am Leslie White. I'm the Director of Regulatory Compliance at SoftPro, and I actually have been working remotely for 18 years. I very rarely do a video conference, so this is interesting and new for me, and we're going to actually talk about it. And if you just saw me leaning in, that's because all of us are facing the challenge of new working from home and with kids, because one of my kids just handed me something. So I'm sure you'll hear dogs barking, kids yelling, all that type of fun stuff today. So we are going to go ahead and get started. And if you have any questions or comments throughout, there is a questions feature on your screen, and we will go ahead and try and get to them. Anything that we don't get to today, we will plan on sending out a list of questions and answers when we send out the link to this recording. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. So remote working, it's our new norm. I know this is kind of scary to a lot of people. Obviously, for me, it is not because, like I said, I've been working from home for the past 18 years with SoftPro. But even for me, it has, come up with some new challenges. One of which, like I just said, I have children at home and I am experiencing not my normal work routine because I also have a dog and a husband and my mom who's here stuck with us in quarantine. So we'll get into some of that. But even if you previously worked from home, this is kind of a new environment that we're navigating as a whole. First and foremost, I really, really, really want you to cut yourself some slack. You may not be the most productive. You may not be able to do everything you were doing before. You might find that you're doing some stuff better, some stuff worse. It's fine. This was just thrown on us. We're all trying to navigate it together. So just cut yourself some slack. Working from home can be very isolating for a lot of people. You're by yourself. You're not with your team and coworkers. So that's fine. Everyone's trying to figure it out. You're not expected to be a rock star at this particular moment. I'm sure many of you are, but it's okay. It's normal to feel this way. Any transition takes time to get used to. So just, take it easy on yourself, work with your teams and kind of work together and we'll get through this. Okay. So people ask me all the time prior to this, they say, how do you work from home? How do you adjust to it? How do you force yourself to work and have any type of schedule? It's actually pretty easy. I say that I don't think it's easy if you work from home randomly because you're not set up for it. But if you're working from home day to day, you really just have to treat it like you are going into the office. So I wake up every morning at the same time. I have my coffee, I do my routine, I get dressed. I'm not going to lie, that may have swayed a little during this quarantine with everybody here, but I try to stick to the same routine as if I'm getting up and going to the office. Like I said, I set my alarm, I have my coffee, I get dressed, and I stick to a schedule. So I'm going to kind of throw this out maybe to Melissa real quick. Melissa, if you don't normally work from home, you're normally in the office every day, so this is new to you. What have you done to kind of make this your norm and ease that transition?
Yeah, I found that a lot of the things that you said here have been really helpful for me too. I know when we first started this transition, that first week or two that I was at home, I did not do those things, and it was very difficult to, I might have one day where I couldn't sleep because you're all stressed out and you wake up at 5:30 in the morning and just jump on your laptop or get back on at night, and then overwork doesn't help and makes you actually less productive and more stressed out over time. So starting to get to a regular schedule like this really helped me too.
Okay. And Amy, I'm gonna get to you in a little bit because I know you're actually in the office a lot. So we're gonna move forward and then come back to you on some thoughts on something. I put this in there kind of as a joke. I am guilty of this. I kind of just talked to about it, but what to wear, what to wear. It's a little different in quarantine than my day to day. And I'm sure you guys are finding the same thing, that maybe your laundry is just not as much as it used to be because you're not getting up and getting dressed and leaving the house. So I honestly find if I get up and I stick to my routine and I get dressed, and I don't mean like you're actually physically going to the office in like a nice outfit, even just like something other than your pajamas, right? That's what you need to do because it changes your mindset a little bit and it just says, okay, I'm ready to work. I'm ready to start my schedule. So I think making sure that you do get up and get dressed, which is a challenge right now, I know, will really help with your productivity. And I know it helps me. So.
Well, while we're getting her back in, yeah, maybe we can talk about some of the other points we wanted to make. We're going to talk a little about, from a SoftPro perspective, how our team transitioned. So we found that from an IT perspective, we were in a really good place where our normal business continuity plans made it really easy for everybody to start working from home. So we had things like the same plans that made it easy if people are just home with a sick child one day, or we're at home because of an ice storm or a hurricane. All of that technology made it super easy that everybody could just kind of pick up their laptops, go home, and get access to everything that they needed to. So things like having a VPN or virtual private network so you can connect securely to your office network and all the tools that you need. That's even how some of our customers are accessing our software from home. Getting all of that to work made that really easy for all of SoftPro. It was a really smooth transition, so I was really happy for that. And our staff did a great job of making sure everybody retested all of those logins and everything before we got home.
Right.
But
we kind of experienced the same thing. It was so comforting to know that we had the tools in place. Although we're one branch, one office, we've got 50 employees. And although we have one who is working remotely before all this began, it was such a cool shift we really did not even miss a beat. Our IT department definitely had some time on their hands to get everyone set up from home and, of course, get all the monitors and computers and whatever else was needed. But the flow itself could not have been smoother. And we were just counting our blessings that we were with SoftPro. And although we had you never wish for something like this, but it's kind of a neat opportunity to see what you're made out of and to see what your systems will actually do. So we were thrilled. And I think the reason I got on this meeting today is I had just texted Leslie the other night after a really long day of just trying to coordinate, like she's saying, I'm here in the office and have been since the beginning, but I'd say 90% of our staff is working from home. So just trying to kind of coordinate things on this end. But I was just telling her how grateful I was to have such a robust and dynamic system like SoftPro already in place, like you were saying. And it's just been fabulous. We've really had good success in making that transition with workload and everything else.
Yeah, what challenges did you guys see as you were trying to start working from home? And just from, I know for us, a lot of that has mostly been kind of not technology based, but just, people based. That's all the personal stuff of employees having to deal with maybe friends or family even being sick from this virus, or furloughed, and dealing with spouses, maybe layoffs. It can be super stressful.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I think one thing we did that was, although it was kind of a scary move in the beginning, was from the very jump of this virus, was to give our employees the option, if you are affected in any way or fearful or just you have kids at home, or you're in a risk group, or you have potentially the virus or whatever, we gave everyone that works here the opportunity to work remotely if they wanted to. And although that was very scary because you don't know what you're getting into or what the productivity might or might not be, we are so glad we made the gamble to do that, because what that resulted in is a very relaxed and appreciative staff who are really busting it every single day to go above and beyond. I think it has made a huge difference for our staff anyway. We're, like I said, there's like 50 of us here, and we're very much, we're in one location, pretty much all on site, and it's very much a family culture. So it was a little bit scary to lose sight of people, but we've done a good job of communicating with each other as well, which I'm sure we'll talk about later. But yeah, it's been interesting to say the least.
Uh-huh. So how have you managed to keep up with all of those people? That's a pretty big group to try and keep everybody coordinated and in sync and communicating with each other. So what kinds of ways are you guys doing that?
Well, I think the first week or so, I spent a lot of time just kind of a 30,000-foot view and trying to remain calm. I think that was kind of the key, is try not to flip out, with the new normal and all that. Of course, lots and lots of changes. I think recognizing that people are in different places with this, and just trying to be tolerant and patient and be kind to each other, and just understand that this is hopefully a small window in our lives that we're definitely being challenged significantly at this time. But I think, kind words and understanding and even a bit of fun. We try to mix a bit of fun into the work week every now and then. We'll throw out a silly challenge or just try to get everybody talking and communicating and not feeling so isolated, and have had really good success with that. We've got, like I said, our group is just, it's big. It's too big to be small and too small to be really big. So it's kind of a nice size group. But you're right. I think just trying to be patient with people, and different departments, of course, have more flexibility. We have an order entry, research, production, customer service, and policy are our main departments. And some of those can work even staggered hours. We have some of our production team working into the wee hours of the night. We've got research going on 24/7. The customer service, of course, is more in line with typical business hours, but the commercial department too has some good flexibility there. But policy, again, flexibility is just the name of the game now, and just trying to stay calm and give them a good work environment has been critical for us to just keep, really, we haven't, a week before, 2 weeks or so before this pandemic really started affecting small businesses. As we all know, the refi boom was in full swing. Our order count was probably triple the average the week before all this began. So we absolutely had a ton of work that was either in the middle of research or being processed for production, and a whole lot of work to do. And I think that's where a lot of the stress came in, as far as, letting go and letting people actually work from home. It was the great unknown. But the productivity has been out the roof. We've seen just this has just been an amazing experience. Again, I don't wish a crisis on anyone, obviously, but it has sort of shown us what we're made of and who our partners are with SoftPro. It's just been incredible.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I think
can you guys hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh my gosh, I don't know what happened, everyone. Thank God I had guests on this week. That would be horrible. You would just be looking at my face, mouth moving, and nothing happening. I had to call in from my phone. I'm so mad. I got a fancy new headset last week, and I can't even use it. Okay,
so now we can't
hear
you. Hello.
I'm back.
Thank
you so much. I saw you guys chatting. I couldn't hear, so I assume, Melissa, you may be going through some of the questions we talked about.
We hit a couple points, yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm gonna switch back over to the presentation. This is so crazy. I'm so mad I can't use my new big gamer headset. Now I got a big phone in front of me too. So hopefully everybody can still hear me, and I apologize for technical difficulties. And if I'm repeating anything that you guys went over, please just let me know. Okay, so one of the things I also wanted to talk about, in addition to what Amy and Melissa were just talking about, is I think it's really important that we remember that we need to designate a workspace. And that doesn't necessarily mean it has to be a separate office. Everybody's not set up at home to have that in place, especially when we weren't planning on this, of course. So as long as you designate a space, it could be a table, it could be a guest room, it could be a basement, wherever. There's just some things to kind of think through. The first one is, set yourself up for success, right? Somewhere where you can really focus. I cannot work downstairs with my kids home. I have to come up to my desk and work. I get a lot more done a lot quicker. So work away from distractions. Maybe don't put your area right in front of your TV or your personal home computer where you might decide to go check, some messages or whatnot. Consider comfort and lighting. You don't want to put yourself into a, basement and, have no light. So consider that as well. And then, of course, like I said, just have somewhere where you can actually spread out and set your stuff up. And it doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be a designated office space. It just needs to have a space where you can focus. Another thing to really think of that a lot of people don't is you need to, which is kind of ironic considering what just happened, but you need to determine a place that's technology friendly. Lots of outlets. You can plug everything and set everything up. Make sure you have good phone reception. That's an issue. That's why I don't work on our bottom floor. I don't really have the best reception down there. And then also make sure you have a strong, fast Wi-Fi connection. This actually, our little hiccup there wasn't the Wi-Fi. I thought maybe it was. It was actually something at the end of the GoToWebinar. But, a lot of times if you're presenting or if you're on a conference call, you want to make sure that you have everything set in place. So, Melissa, where have you designated to work, or are you kind of all over?
Yeah, I have a designated workspace that I like to call my corner office, which is the corner of our guest room. But it works, and like you said, is away from where our children are downstairs, so it's usually pretty quiet. I have had a lot of calls where my daughter has burst in the background, so I actually had to barricade the door today in hopes that doesn't happen, but it's a comfortable workspace. And one other thing I would add, if someone doesn't have an extra monitor at home, I know we have at least one broken TV in the basement that works, and you can use a TV with an HDMI cable as an extra monitor if you don't have one. So a great way to get like a big screen instead of just your little laptop screen if you're used to having multiple monitors.
That's actually really good advice. My husband doesn't normally work from home. So in addition to my 3 children, my husband is also home. He is an engineer, so he's very methodical, and, this is how we do things. And he struggled that first week because he could not work off his laptop. So I suggested the same thing. I said, we have a couple of monitors, go ahead and hook it up. And it was life-changing for him. I mean, he did try and set it up on my desk, which obviously did not work out well. But once he found his own space and hooked it up, then he was, good to go.
I think something you said earlier too, Leslie. Oh,
yeah, go ahead, Amy. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say something you alluded to earlier is be sure you have all of your work supplies there in your workspace in advance, because if you're anything like me, a little maybe ADD, you can run across the house to grab a highlighter or a stapler, and before you know it, you've redecorated the living room. So yeah, make sure you have all your things in advance before you start working to prevent delays. So.
Very good advice. It's true though. I mean, especially when you're not used to working at home, and you're like, oh, maybe I'll do the dishes. Maybe what should we make for dinner? Blah, 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 right? And then you're like, oh, why was I even away from my desk? An hour later, you return. So very good advice.
Yeah.
Just went ahead and put this picture in to kind of give you an idea. So you can see the top one. That's really where you're going to be the most productive. You have a set space. You have everything you need, like Amy said. And then you have down there at the bottom, kind of working on the couch, working on the floor. Not to say that in today's environment that won't work. Obviously, a lot of people are at home that were never intending to be remote employees, and they don't have the setup. So whatever you have to do to make it work is fine. Just in general, if you can, you will find that it's easier to work and you get a lot more done if you have a designated space. Melissa, you cracked me up. Her daughter is so cute, and she kept bursting in on conference calls and asking for like various things, or having no pants on, I think one time maybe too.
Yes.
My kids are 13, 9, and 11, and the 2 oldest obviously are used to me working from home. But my youngest, even though she's used to me working from home, it's like she only surfaces when I have to get on a call. Like I won't see her forever, and then all of a sudden I get on a call and she's like, Mom, Mom, Mom. So maybe if you're working from home with family too, I have a slide on it, but kind of talk to them about when you're working, when you're not, what you need from them when you're working. So, it's a learning curve for everybody. And so I put this slide in here, because I have found out something very important about myself. I was never meant to be an elementary school teacher or middle school teacher, and definitely probably not a high school teacher. My kids are all online working, right? I live in Chicago. I know Melissa's facing the same thing down in Raleigh. And nationwide, most schools are closed and for the rest of the year. So we're fortunate, and the setup has been pretty good with online and teacher meetings and Zooms and stuff like that. But it's still a lot. It's a lot to manage suddenly working from home and trying to manage homeschooling your kids, if you will, or even if, how you and your spouse are going to figure it out throughout the day because there isn't enough space or something like that. So it's been more challenging than just your average work from home. But just remember, everyone is in the same boat. I had someone the other day that was texted me ahead of time and said, I'm so embarrassed. I'm getting ready to call in, but my child is having a temper tantrum and you're going to be able to hear them. And I was like, who cares? Everybody's home. This isn't your normal work from home. So if you're dealing with that, just do the best you can. Kind of talk to them if they're old enough to understand, like, hey, I need this hour because I'm going to be on a call or so on. I find that works. But, in this case, everyone's in the same boat. And I know Melissa's in the same boat. And it's okay to take breaks to check in on their schoolwork. And it's okay to take breaks to see if they need anything. It's an unusual situation.
I would like to add, as a manager, I think it's super important to help make that visible to your employees. So it's not, because people might not understand that you're okay with the fact that they have to take care of their family and might not be 100% available all the time. And so with my staff, we try to be super explicit about that and lead by example. And especially those first couple weeks, I had a lot of conversations with my staff about the fact that, I do have to figure out how this is going to work with kids. I've got a 3-year-old and a 10-year-old at home. And the 10-year-old can take care of herself pretty well during the day, and 3-year-old not so much. So, we just have to be, like Amy was saying earlier, be super kind and flexible with each other and just be explicit with employees about that so they know it's okay. It's okay to figure it out as we go and to not be 100% available between 8 and 5, and it'll all work out.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. Communication is key, and Melissa and Amy, I'm going to kind of throw a little bit of this to you in a minute, but one, I can't stress that over communicating is not a bad thing when you are remote. When you are not face-to-face and in meetings, don't assume everybody knows. I mean, that kind of goes to what Melissa just said, right? Don't assume that your employees know you're fine, that they have a baby on their lap while they're typing something up. So over communication, they don't assume anyone knows something. Always, share what you want them to know. As an employee, it's important to know your employer's remote work policies. Again, this is a little bit of a unique situation, but a lot of companies are going to still have expectations that you should be meeting. How to communicate, this is big. You want to make sure that your employees, or if you are an employee, that you know how to get up with whomever you need to get up with and when, right? So if you have designated hours, that makes it a lot easier. Do they prefer email? Do they prefer text? Do they prefer Skype? Do they prefer Slack, Zoom, Teams? You name it. There's something for everybody. It's just important that you communicate what method you're going to use and that everybody is set up to do so. Not everyone has all these remote apps and maybe doesn't know how to use them. And so it's important that if you're going to choose something, that everyone not only has access to it, but they know how to use it. And then I put in here video calls, which, right now I'm second guessing as I'm sitting here holding a phone with no headset on. But video calls are kind of key right now. We're going to talk about that when we talk about morale. But, I'm going to throw this to Melissa. Communication is a big hurdle right now for a lot of people because they're used to being able to get up and say, walk to your office, right, and ask you a question. So, how are you able to stay in touch with your team? How did you relay that? And is it working for everybody?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we were in a really fortunate position that we happened to roll out Microsoft Teams right before we ended up moving home. And that tool has been super, super valuable. So we use that for video calls, for document sharing, for chats, there's so many different things that it can do, screen sharing. And so we've, sorry, one moment, my child is actually jumping on the bed behind me.
See, exactly what we just talked about.
Sorry about that. So Microsoft Teams, though, if you're not familiar with that tool, it's something that is available with a lot of small business Office 365 packages and the enterprise Office 365 or Microsoft 365. So if you have any of those software packages or license deals from Microsoft, you may already have access to Microsoft Teams and not realize it. So, and some of the other tools that Leslie mentioned here are also free. So things like Slack, if you wanted to use that for your teams to help collaborate as they're getting transitioned to home, they can start using for free with certain limitations. I would add Facebook actually has a work app called Facebook Workplace that has the benefit of people not needing to be trained, right? Because most people know how to use Facebook. It's pretty easy to use, and that also has video chatting and all of that. So with Microsoft Teams, we've especially used the video chatting, especially for small group or one-on-one meetings. It's been super helpful because so much of that nonverbal communication is really important. So we try and do as much of that as we can with employees, and then with larger group meetings, we've even used that to hold kind of hangouts, like you see people doing everywhere, Zoom hangouts. We do virtual happy hours with our team every week or two for just hangout time and checking in.
Nice. Can you share a story you shared with me when we were, ironically, testing all the audio visual yesterday? Can you share the story where you had your meeting and it actually was more productive than when you were in person?
Yes, yeah. So that was a huge challenge for us. That it was just a couple days after we left the office. We were scheduled to do this big R&D planning meeting that we do about once a quarter that had probably 100 people. We were flying some people in to do this meeting in person. And so we had to scramble and figure out how we were going to do that meeting remotely. And it's pretty complicated setup where usually there's some big group settings and then there are a bunch of breakouts and then we come back together. And so we ended up doing all of that through Microsoft Teams. And at the end of it, everybody was kind of surprised because we thought overall that went better than when we did it in person, primarily because it's such a level playing field when everybody is connected the same way. It's easy for everybody to hear and talk to each other. And, so there's no one sitting in the uncomfortable seat way in the back of the big conference room. We didn't have problems jumping from one room to another because you just click a button and you're there. It really will change, I think, the way that we do those meetings in the future because it worked so much better with everybody just connecting from a single desk somewhere.
Yeah, that's so great to hear because, obviously we're in a bad situation right now just with everything going on. But it's nice to highlight. I know, Amy, you mentioned that when I was having some audio problems, mentioned how you guys have found some new processes. It's kind of nice to find, it's forced us to kind of think outside the box and think outside the norm and say, hey, this actually was better. And like you said, Melissa, everyone on the same level playing field, that changes their whole outlook in the meeting too, right? They're part of it. They're able to contribute. So, Amy, to you, as far as communicating with your employees, because you're in the office, but mostly, I think you said about 90% of your employees are not. What is the best communication method that you guys are having? And do you guys do a lot of video or no?
It depends on the department. I know that our sales team has done a lot of Zoom meetings and a lot of, they're just kind of playing with different apps to see kind of works best for them. And they're a nice blend of social and work. They have a good time together, kind of testing out all the different apps and choices that are out there. Here in the office, typically during work hours, we're still pretty much email dependent and text if it's sort of a one-to-one type communication. We've done some Skype but like I said, during business hours, it's typically either email or texting. So we're not too fancy with all that yet, but we'll see how much longer I think we have limited access to the Teams. I keep hearing how great the Teams is, and I think we have like a limited access to that. We've not explored that as much as we're going to now that I hear Melissa talking about how great that is. So we will we're definitely like you said, Leslie, just trying to make sure everyone feels connected. And I think it's so easy working from home, especially when you can't escape at all, to not feel isolated. I think it's so important to keep that momentum going and to remind people that they're an important part of the process. I love that title insurance was deemed essential, in the very early days. I think it gave our folks a lot of good boost in how they feel about themselves and the jobs that they are doing. And we just continue to communicate. Like I was telling Melissa while you were on your hiatus, we've also done some fun, what I call reply all ball, where we do an email out to everyone, and we've done some fun challenges with that. The I Miss You challenge, where everyone was challenged to take a selfie of themselves in their designated workspace and shoot it back, with no fear of us, putting it on social media or anything like that, but just to see smiles and faces and disregard hair and things like that. But anyway, just trying to make it fun.
I think that's important, and we're gonna go ahead.
No, just important, okay. Like you said, to keep in touch.
Yeah, we're actually going to talk about that literally on this screen. So nice segue, Amy. It is important when you work remotely, and I'm kind of guilty of this. Well, not so much now, but I used to be. Remember, you are part of a bigger team, right? You may have your schedule, and you may have the way you do things at home and your productivity and whatnot. But at the end of the day, unless you are literally a department of one, you are part of a bigger team, and that team still needs to stay intact. Because one day, right? One day we'll be back at the office, hopefully, and you can't be so isolated or have been so removed that you can't really work with that team anymore. So I run our compliance department now, so it's a little different. I do have a team, which is great, and I love it. And I actually didn't realize how much I missed having a team. Albeit it's a small team, but when I was just me, it was kind of I don't know. I don't want to say isolating, because I very much enjoy working from home, but you did feel very removed from things. So being part of a team is important. And just because we're at home doesn't mean we have to lose that. So a couple of tips and tricks here is, take time for some water cooler chat, and kind of what Amy just said, do an email, do a funny thing. I know Slack, you can do it on Teams, there's chat, and there's, send to all type things, what's your blank of the week? What was your, what are your hobbies while in quarantine? It could be anything non-work related, work related, just something to kind of help you guys come together as a team, as if you were all in the same conference room. Use video, even if it makes you feel uncomfortable. Amy just touched on it. Nobody cares what you look like, right? Honestly, they're just happy to see your smiling face. They're at home alone. They want to see their coworkers and team members. So nobody's judging you. No one's going to screenshot it and put it on social media. And also, I don't know, we assume you guys wanted to see us today based on other feedback, but that may not be true. I don't know. We may get other feedback after this, but it does kind of personalize it and make you feel like you're with people and you're not alone. So the scheduled check-ins are important. I don't mean necessarily daily stand-ups and stuff like that. Melissa, I know your team does a million check-ins. I have to with R&D. My team does not. We do very long, big projects. So, we do check in, obviously, but we don't need daily. But I started checking in on Fridays via video, which we've never done before, just because they're stuck at home too. I just want to make sure they're okay. What are they doing? Are their kids driving them crazy? Is their, spouses driving them crazy? So it's just, think about when you take a break at work and you walk into the kitchen at your office and you kind of get to chat with someone, right? Maybe it could be about anything. So it's kind of setting that up virtually. And then also just importantly, make sure your remote team is able to relay to you any hurdles they're facing. You want to be very open. You want to be understanding. And it kind of goes back to what Melissa said, make sure you've set those expectations. Make sure you've let them know it's okay if your kid's crying. We're all home in this together. So letting them vent and discuss hurdles, even amongst each other, may solve some of them. So it's just really important that you still have that sense of team, and that your employees or your team also feels that as well. So Melissa, I know you guys have a bunch of meetings and stuff, but are you guys doing any type of like fun things like Amy mentioned?
We do some fun things like, so SoftPro in general, our HR department has done some of those water cooler things. One of our team's channels is called the break room. And so we posted some of those questions. I think the latest was, what are you binging right now? What are you binge watching? With so any of those kinds of things are fun. The happy hours, like I talked about, is a good way to check in. And then, yeah, our teams have all sorts of more formal meetings for stuff where, like Leslie said, we do stand-ups every day as part of our agile development process, which is something I think could even translate to a title company or attorney's office where, basically every day, everybody on the team just has a short 10 or 15-minute meeting, check in the morning to say, what'd you do yesterday? What are you doing today? Is anything blocking you? And you're kind of accountable to your small team of 7 to 10 people that you're working most closely with. And you just do that every day so everybody can stay on track. So that's a good touch point, because otherwise, if you're kind of at home and you're just emailing people, maybe talking to your manager once a week, you're not quite as connected as if you can do that more frequently.
I would add to that as well, Melissa, too. It is important too, as far as those working from home. If there is a change in your schedule or your deliverables or whatever, be sure to communicate that, because there's nothing worse than emailing an empty chair. And I didn't realize you had a doctor's, or maybe not a doctor's appointment, but something going on that day that would keep you, even if you can accomplish your job in the evening or do something on an adjusted schedule, which is fine. Just let us know, that you're not sitting there, and that's extremely important as well. So,
absolutely.
Great expectation.
Okay, can you guys see my screen?
Yes,
we can.
Okay, great. Okay, just making sure. I had a weird message pop up. I'm glad it's you two on here with me. I don't know how we're gonna do video again, but we'll figure it out, just like everyone else. So, I wanted to just throw a few questions out, and then, we're going to get to the most important thing, which is obviously the recipe and drink recipe for the week. So,
of course.
I know, right? I know that a lot of our customers don't know me personally. So I'll share with you real quickly. I love to cook. I've always loved to cook. I pretend I'm a chef, even though I'm not. And I spend hours in the kitchen, and it has only magnified during this whole quarantine, because I'm here and I have a lot of time on my hands. So I started cooking a lot, and then I had a lot of friends saying, oh, I love that. Can you, give me that recipe? So we just thought it would be fun to end each week of our webinar series with a recipe and a drink recipe, both alcoholic or non-alcoholic, your choice. So we'll get to that. But Melissa, I'm wondering if you could share maybe what you feel like are your top 2 tips for managing a team remotely.
I think the first you touched on, to communicate, over communicate. And that's make sure you're touching people frequently enough with any communication, communicate at all levels, whether it's, to the whole company, and kind of, we've been doing SoftPro formal email, like weekly emails to the team to kind of say, hey, here's where the business is at this point. Here's what's going on. Here's how everybody's getting through this, and calling out some good things that the team did. And being transparent about how everything is going. If our president of the company, Joyce, even has a problem at her home working some week, she might say that. And so everybody knows, again, that it's okay. And then the second thing I would say from a management perspective is just to, assume positive intent from everybody. Everybody's trying their best, and everybody's working really hard on our teams. And, a lot of people have a tendency, when you can't see the people that are working for you, then you think, well, maybe they're not doing their job, maybe they're slacking off, maybe, but they're not. They're really, if we've done our job and hired all these great, smart people on our teams that we love working with, they're doing their work, they're getting their job done. Come from that position when you're working with them, and assume that, they're trying their best. And, so lean more towards that than kind of falling back on micromanagement kind of style.
Yeah, I agree 100% with that. Amy, what are your thoughts on that? You are, like I said, you're in the office. You're a little bit reversed of everybody else. So what are you
Right.
doing to kind of stay on top of your employees and connect with them?
I would echo almost verbatim what Melissa was saying. As far as I think the two biggest things are going to be flexibility, just recognizing that we're all coming at this from different places. We all have different tolerances. We all have different lifestyles. We all have different adjustments that we've had to make during this, and then just remaining positive. A kind word can go a long way. I love what Melissa said about, put the micromanaging aside. We absolutely have to do that. Are things perfect? No, but we have been pleasantly surprised at the productivity of our people, the creativity of the departments. I can't manage each department because I don't work in those departments and know exactly what the flow is. And instead of them waiting for me to say, okay, here's the way we're going to do this, our department heads have been fantastic in being creative and adaptive and using the system, the SoftPro system, to really advance what we're doing. So I think just, understanding that we've all kind of, you do you, whatever that looks like right now. And as long as we're making forward progress, I count that as a success. So.
Yeah, I can't agree more. I mean, I'll give my 2 cents as usual. I cannot echo enough Melissa's sentiment of letting your team know that you are in the same boat and it's okay. And that, if a kid runs in the middle of a call, that's fine for today's world and environment. And just letting them know you appreciate them, and even, trying to set up and do the work that they're doing from home. I think that goes a long way. I think that people need to hear it. I think people are worried that they're not doing their jobs when they're really doing a great job. I would also stress, if you have teams that you really need to stay in touch with, I can't stress teams enough. I was kind of a little hesitant when we switched over because, we were so used to our Skype and whatnot. I love Teams. It is so amazing. It works so well, and it's so easy to use. I have no idea why things are now popping up on my screen. It's been a really great.
You're 18.
Yeah. Good Lord. So just so everyone knows, I'm not like that tech, illiterate. IT is currently working on something on my computer, and they cannot get my notifications to turn off. We've done everything. I have no idea why, but that's why. So you are all welcome to know that Baseball Express is randomly sending me something. Anyway, I can't stress you enough communication, but I would, if you haven't looked at Teams, I would 100% look at it. I think it's probably one of the best tools out there. But again, if you have a smaller team and you really want something for free, I like Slack. I think Slack is good. I know, Melissa, your team used to use Slack a lot, but I think it's good and it's easy to use. Just make sure everyone knows what you're going to use. So before we get to our final slide, though, I would ask both of you. We can start with Amy. What are your thoughts post-COVID? What do you think is going to happen, at least with your organization? Do you think you guys may embrace some of these changes, and maybe some of your employees would be remote or part-time remote, part-time office? Or what do you think is going to stick and not stick post-COVID-19?
Yeah, I think, like I had mentioned before, we are one location, one branch. There's 50 of us under the same roof. We're very much a family culture here. And whereas I can't even hardly imagine not everyone getting back together and working the way we used to, I can definitely foresee that for some, either I'm scared to even say this because I don't know who's listening from my office, but I think we're absolutely going to be able to anticipate a desire for some to be able to do it at least part-time remotely. And like I said, the productivity has just really been off the chart. We've been so encouraged with that, that I think we will not be as hesitant to entertain that as an option going forward, definitely. And even when folks are sick or home with sick kids, just to know that you can get in and do some work. Again, it may not be your full freight load that you do when you're here in the office, but anything is helpful, of course. So we'll see. I think time will tell. Check back with me on that.
Yeah. We will. Yeah, you touched on something about productivity, and again, I wanted to just add, I probably was talking about it before when no one could hear me. People always ask me, how do you, work from home? How do you get everything done? And I tell them I'm more productive at home than in the office because I'm set up for it. Also, you have to factor in, if you didn't have your children or spouse or anybody home, they were all at school and work, you have no interruptions. You don't have somebody like, hey, can you come into this meeting, or popping into your office, or wandering through the break room and seeing something shiny and forgetting what you were working on. Those are things that you don't deal with at home. And so productivity can be very high at home, if not higher than the office. So it will be interesting post COVID-19 to see how this pans out. So Melissa, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think since we're definitely proving during that time that our staff can be productive at home and can make this work. And so I think if anybody had any concerns before that maybe productivity would drop or we wouldn't be able to make this work, we're way past that now. Everybody's really proven that. And so I don't think we have a good, I don't have a good reason to say that everybody needs to come back to the office if they're really interested in working from home. One thing we'll have to do is figure out how to get, all the benefits that we have when we're all forced to be at home and we're all using Teams, for example, is different when, and Leslie's dealt with this before, if we've got 7 people in the office in a conference room and you're dialed in, you can't see everybody. It's not the same as when we're all dialed in. So we'll have to do some work there. But yeah, I absolutely think we'll have more people working full time from home going forward. And that's a great option potentially for our entire industry to save on expense of people not being in the office and lower real estate cost, even if you look at smaller square footage and all of that. So yeah, it could be a big change over time.
Yeah, you bring up a point. Amy, go ahead. No, go ahead.
No. I just one example I really wanted to use with SoftPro itself as far as, but y'all keep going. Just remember that I forget things.
No, trust me. They would rather hear from you than me. Go.
One thing I was going to say is just one aspect of SoftPro I think that we have not used it to its full capacity until now has been the checklist tasks, being able to assign the files to individuals rather than to departments. We're somewhat newbies on SoftPro. We're in our second year as of April. We're in our second full year, and we did a lot of automation and really cool things with the checklist tasks as far as the departments go. But one thing that was really cool, and as far as keeping things flowing, like Melissa was talking about, is being able to assign those to individuals so that when they get up in the morning, they've already got a list of files that have been assigned to them specifically, and it's not everyone trying to root around in the department folder to, so you don't have duplicate work and effort there. So I just wanted to mention that we've really had great success in finding out just what SoftPro can do. We're learning, some of the bells and whistles that we've not really had the opportunity to explore. We're feeling out new workflows and new systems, and just really figuring out just how robust a system this is. I just wanted to mention that as a specific example of keeping folks accountable. Like, I can see what you're working on for the day, and and when you complete it, it comes off your list. So that's been like a game changer for us, really. Extremely awesome.
Yeah,
that's so great to hear. I know Melissa loves hearing it. And
yeah, I mean, we
not
found
pay
that.
her to say that.
No.
It is true, though, and that works really well from both ends, right? From management to see who's working on what, turnaround time, what's done, what's not done. But as an employee, it's also really helpful to log in the morning and have your task list already set up and not have to kind of, okay, what do I need to work on, so on and so forth. So it's a really good point, and I appreciate you for pointing that out. One other thing I'll add on to what Melissa was saying was the cost factor of brick and mortar really can come into play with remote employees. And I do think we may see some organizations feel like they can expand because they don't need as much space in the brick and mortar because they can have remote employees, or maybe they can relocate to a smaller brick and mortar for their closings and whatnot, and because their people can be working remotely. So there is a cost factor as well, which I think is a really good point to talk about. And I think in general, our industry, which is generally a very face-to-face, like we are right now, industry, and where we love our paper and we love to sit down at a table and talk. I think this whole situation has kind of opened a lot of people's eyes to, wow, we can do this and a lot more if we're open to change. So I think, the situation's horrible, right? COVID-19 is horrible, but Amy, I think you said it earlier, there is some good that came out of it. Process changes, remote employees, cost factors, and really think about it. We're kind of shut down as a country, but yet the title and real estate industry is able to work almost at 100%. Like, that's crazy. Who would have ever thought that the title industry, one of the oldest industries and probably one of the most resistant to change, would be able to function at such a high capacity and not skip a beat? I'm not surprised, because all of our customers are amazing, and I have no doubt that they could make it work with anything, but it is kind of cool to see. And I think it's neat for other people to realize it too. Not every industry can do what we're doing. So with that said, we're going to get to the best part, my favorite part. I'm going to share out a recipe, guys. I am going to share out a recipe. This is one of my family's favorite recipes. It's super, super easy to make, and if anyone is interested, it is very low calorie, but it is a pan-seared boneless pork chop with a honey garlic glaze, or sauce, if you will. It takes probably 20 minutes to make the whole thing. I've tried to pick real easy things in here. I'm not going to read you the whole recipe. We'll make this available online, but just know that you can substitute ingredients, right? Not everybody can get out all the time right now and get everything you need. So if you have thick cut pork chop, cut them in half. It's fine. If you have bone-in, that's fine. Whatever you want to use, you know how to cook it. You can follow the recipe otherwise. And again, if you don't have everything, for example, if you don't have apple cider vinegar, you can use a different type of vinegar. It's fine. Make it to taste. So if you don't have everything that you need, it's okay. You can make do. I serve mine with vegetables. We're big vegetable eaters here. We love them. You can serve it over rice. I can't stress to you enough how delicious this glaze is. So even if you wanted to just make the glaze for something else like chicken or fish, it's fantastic. Down here at the bottom, we have a peach and lemon refresher. I don't know if you have any bourbon drinkers out there, but last week we did the sangria, so I thought I'd do something a little bit more with a punch this week. But you can make this with or without alcohol. I don't want to assume everybody is, to the point of quarantine where they need to drink, like myself. So really, it's just some peach juice. I do recognize that a lot of people may not have peach juice. You could make this any fruit you want. So any juice you have. I would say maybe not orange juice. It's kind of heavy. But any other juice you have, and mix it with some bourbon if you want, and then add some lemonade, put your fruit in, call it a day. You've earned it. You're successfully navigating working from home. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out, email. I don't know exactly what we're going to do with this recording here, simply because I was cut off for a good portion of it. I know Melissa and Amy, thank God, stepped in and handled the show well without me. But I don't know. We'll probably make it available, and then maybe I may see if our marketing team, since they're amazing, is able to. I could redo those slides and pop them in somewhere. So we'll see. We'll figure it out. But if we do get any questions, we'll also include all the questions and answers for everybody, so everybody has the same information. So I do want to apologize that we had this kind of the technical and audio portion here. So I apologize that we had some issues. Hopefully you'll still join us next week. It's Cinco de Mayo. It's going to be a fun episode. We're going to send out the information for it. Just know there's a really, 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 really good blood orange margarita recipe coming your way. And my famous enchiladas. So if you're not going to tune in for anything else, tune in for that. So I want to thank Melissa. I want to thank Amy, and thank everybody for joining us. And we will see you next week.
Thank you.
Thanks, Leslie. Appreciate it. Bye.
Bye.